Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show tonight. I am John Kurtz. The Big 12 is open for business, as you can see by the sign. Best Big 12 podcast on planet Earth. So please do subscribe if you do not already. Appreciate everybody who does. Like the video. All these things are great. But man, we got to talk today about the numbers, the data. We've got data that says Texas Tech can, in fact, win the national championship, people. That's a pretty big deal. This is a good time to be a team that's in the 5 to 15 range in college football right now. It's pretty clear that Texas Tech is the only Big 12 team that really belongs in that designation. And the Red Raiders are certainly a step above everybody else. I do want to talk about who's number 2 in the Big 12 tonight also, because I think that is a totally fascinating discussion right now, especially in light of what we just saw yesterday. As you guys have noted in the comments, I can see already, yes, it was a pretty wild day in college football, was it not? It was. James Franklin has been fired. Trent Dilfer was fired at UAB, and Oregon State fired its coach as well after an 0-7 start. So the coaching carousel is getting crazier, and you know that if the coaching carousel is getting crazy, Big 12 coaches are going to be mentioned. One in particular that you absolutely know is on the list already. So I do want to talk about that. But it's not just this. It's not just this Penn State job. It's what could come. People are forecasting already where this coaching carousel is going to go, and it could be wild. So if you like your coach, if you're a Big 12 fan that likes your coach, you want to keep your coach, hold on tight. Hold on tight. Keep your arms and feet inside the ride at all times and hang on. That's what I have to say. Okay. There you have it. That's the outline for tonight. As I said, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Chat's already getting crazy. Make sure that you keep sending stuff in there, interact with each other, have a ball. But if you want to make sure that your comment gets on the show tonight, your question or comment, click the $ below the chat box. If you would like to do that, it submits a super chat. You can also hit me up on Venmo at John-Kurtz-4 if you're not watching live, and leave me a question or comment there. I will kick off the next show with it. So lots of ways to stay in touch with the show, and appreciate everybody who does that. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. We are approaching 5,300 Big 12 fan subscribers. It is totally free to your inbox twice a week. Great way to get some extra Big 12 coverage, totally for free. And again, more than 5,000 Big 12 fans already have signed up. I got to start tonight with my guy, Michael, who sent me a message on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4. Appreciate you, Michael. So he says, let's see, probably won't make the live show because it's the wife's B-Day. Well, Mike, I suppose we all have to have our priorities. That's mildly disappointing that your wife would take precedence over a live show talking about everything happening in the Big 12 right now. But hey, you got to do what you got to do. I kid. He says, but wanted to say congrats to K-State on getting a statement win. What a wild day. Also about the Cougs. So he is a BYU fan. So messy, so many mistakes, unlucky bounces, etc. Just so lucky to still get that road win. Felt like one we would have lost last year, and he puts the Kansas game in parentheses. Well, it was kind of, you could also argue, Mike, that it was like the Oklahoma State game last year. Probably not. The Oklahoma State game felt a little more miraculous because of that last drive, the way things went down, or the Utah game, right? See, I don't know. I feel like BYU did this multiple times last year. They did have the one that it finally tilted the other way. Luck ran out at the end of the year, and there could still be a position where luck runs out on BYU at the end of this year. But for now, I would actually say that this was more similar to some of those wins that we saw last year. And it feels like the beat keeps on going without Jake Retzloff. And obviously you insert Bear Bachmeier now as quarterback. Mike also said after the game, I realized the stress of the game was partially because it had deeper meaning and conference implications. Made me super grateful to be in a conference again. Happy we're home in the Big 12. Love what you do for the Big 12. You're awesome. Well, hey, thank you, Mikey. I appreciate that, my man, Mikey G. Chiming in. Mike, always a great dude. Thank you for your support of the channel as always. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for your comments on the BYU game. I'm realizing now, one other thing I forgot to tease. Did you guys see Lance Leipold, Joey McGuire. I will play it for you. I'm hoping you'll be able to at least somewhat hear the audio. You'll be able to hear the beeps, which is what matters. But I do want to talk about this. Got brought up in the live chat that I did late last night from Starter 179, our resident Tech fan around here. Things got heated. Okay. It was a wild day. It's been a wild weekend in college football. Let's dive right into it, shall we? We're going to start with the top of the Big 12, but not just Texas Tech, also who is number 2. So look, Saturday reinforced Texas Tech is the best team in the Big 12. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's Tech and everyone else. We now have statistical proof that Texas Tech can win a national championship. And this actually came from one of the guys who is, I would say, he's kind of a Big 12 hater. Realist, but realist sometimes to a fault that to me makes him feel like a Big 12 hater. But who is Tech's biggest challenger? Let's talk about that as well. Look, the reason, very easy to come to this conclusion after watching a 42-17 win over Kansas for Texas Tech. We're again, kind of like the Houston game, like spotlight, night game, everyone's watching, everyone's wondering, can this team actually pose a real threat and a challenge? And Texas Tech just sort of rolls through it. Pushed a little bit more in this one, for sure. But most of the core tenets of a 2025 Texas Tech win were there. Defensive line dominated. They had 9 sacks. I mean, that's speaks for itself. If you're looking at Pro Football Focus right now, you've got the number 2 and number 3 Pro Football Focus graded defensive lineman in the country. The only one better is a guy at Miami that many people are saying might be like Heisman Trophy worthy good. So, yeah, that's pretty impressive what Tech has there with David Bailey and Romello Height. David Bailey has 8.5 sacks already this year. You guys seen that? He's got 8.5 sacks already this year. I mean, we're talking about that could be a guy that winds up with like 20 sacks this season. That's crazy. Tech won by 24 plus. They've done that in every single game this year now. Tech put up 500 plus yards of offense. That's become a pretty common thing for Texas Tech. But as I mentioned, this wasn't as comfortable as like the Houston game, for instance. I did see a Houston fan say earlier in the chat, oh, more slobbering all over Texas Tech tonight. Well, you know what? If Houston would have put up a better fight against Texas Tech, maybe we wouldn't be slobbering this much. Unfortunately, Houston did not. Kansas did put up a bit of a fight, right? This was 21-17 at one point. Kansas had the ball and was driving. And it's very easy to forget how things really felt at that point in the game, okay? And with this, I'm going to make fun of myself and point out what things really felt like at this moment in time simultaneously here, okay? So if you follow me on Twitter, it's at JL Kurtz. Your boy here sent this tweet out. So Tech may be in some trouble. And that was at 8:19, okay? So that game, that's like, what, we're like an hour into that game. Was it 7 or 6:30? I can't remember. Anyway, I waited to send this until it's 21-17 at the half. Kansas has all the momentum. They get the long field goal, and then Kansas is driving. They get the ball back, and it's like, man, this really feels like Kansas is about to go do this. The Will Hammond offense was sputtering, right? Behren Morton was out of the game. The Will Hammond offense was sputtering. It went punt, interception, punt, punt. So you're looking around like, what? Tech legit might be in trouble here. I did not think I would be saying this tonight, but they legit might be in trouble here. Well, as you might guess, you can see 30 replies. Like this, the tweet got bombed by Texas Tech fans. Thank you guys for reminding me what an idiot I can be sometimes. It's much appreciated. Sometimes you need a little reminder of that, but that is how it felt in the moment. It was like, dude, it looks like Will Hammond just doesn't have it, and they don't have the answers. They just started handing the ball off, and they just started making Will Hammond run the ball. That was it. And to me, that's like emblematic of why Tech is where they're at. They have multiple ways that they can beat you. Hey, Behren Morton passing game, not there right now. Morton's out. Will Hammond having a horrible night throwing the ball. Another opinion of mine that looks stupid now that I mentioned yesterday, that Will Hammond is definitively the better quarterback. I still do believe he has a higher ceiling, but you can now see where the floor of Will Hammond is versus where the floor of Behren Morton is, and there's clearly a wide gap there. But all Joey McGuire and company have to do is say, well, wait, hang on. Cameron Dickey, 7 yards. Cameron Dickey, 24 yards. Will Hammond, 14 yards. Will Hammond, 20 yards. Touchdown. Here we go. We can just run for 372 yards. In the second half, Texas Tech had 208 rushing yards. It was almost the entire yardage that the offense gained in the second half was on the ground. So they just made a commitment to do that and let it go. Tech can mash you on the ground. Their defensive line, like that defense, can clearly go out and win you a game. I mean, the D line can definitely do it on its own. If Tech wants to be lights out and throw for 350 or 400 through the air, Behren Morton has done that a couple of times this year. They've got the weaponry to do that. Like, it just doesn't matter. Tech has so many different ways to beat you. And that is why Texas Tech is definitively the best team in the league, because other teams run into a situation like that against Kansas last night, and they're not going to be able to stop the bleeding. They will be in a dogfight, and in many cases would lose. Texas Tech turns it into a 42-17 win, right, with relative ease. They get in that moment. They're in a moment of panic there. Doesn't matter. And I shouldn't say a moment of panic. They get into a moment of trouble, and it doesn't matter. They can be calm, just figure it out, press some other buttons, because they have so much talent and so many other ways to beat you. And when you're that type of a team, I think a lot of people wonder, like, okay, Texas Tech is clearly best in the Big 12, but John, are they national championship level good? Like, can this team win playoff games? My take initially was, hey, I don't know if Behren Morton really can when you go up against a defense that good. We will see. Okay, but I will admit, I was surprised to see Bud Elliott from the Cover 3 podcast tweet this out earlier today. Also, he works for 24/7 and CBS Sports. He was following up on and quote tweeting Bill Connolly's S&P Plus rankings. So Bill Connolly's S&P Plus, to me, that's one of the gold standards of computer rankings that you'll see in college football, right? So if you're wondering about that. So Bill Connolly just posts the updated rankings, which it assigns a number value to every team and ranks them. Bud Elliott points out the difference between 1st and 17th in these rankings is just one score. So like one touchdown. And in 2019, the difference between 1st and 17th was 3 touchdowns. So when we talk about how much NIL has changed the game and the transfer portal has changed the game, this is what we are talking about. It really has increased the amount of teams that have a legit shot here. And it's made it, while you still have your powers up at the top there, it's made it much more interesting. SEC rosters, you can't hoard second and third teamers the way that you used to be able to. There's more spread out talent throughout the sport. That means it's a good thing if you're one of these teams that's in contention. Okay. So let's switch this over to see the actual, stop sharing this. Let's switch this over to see the actual rankings now, so we can see where Texas Tech fits in here. Because, okay, John, you're telling me everybody's close, and that's Bud Elliott there, who's a guy that's been – it's not like he has a Big 12 axe to grind, but he is just a hyper-realist and very much abides by the blue chip ratio and talent on rosters and all of that. And he was someone – I mean, Tech fans, I saw you getting after him the other day because earlier this year, like in the offseason – he actually was somebody that was like, hey, the transfer portal wasn't actually that good this year, so I don't know if I believe in Texas Tech because there wasn't that much talent in the portal for them to snatch up. Like, this has been a guy who has been the Big 12 never has enough talent to do this type of thing. But now he's saying, hey, look, between 1 and 17, everybody's so close. So many teams have chances. All right, well, where does Texas Tech fall on that? Here you go. Texas Tech's number 4 right now. Texas Tech is number 4. So the guy who has been the most Big 12 can't do this, Texas Tech can't do this, is now saying, well, actually, it looks like a bunch of teams can. And Texas Tech is near the very top of that list. Texas Tech at number 4, behind only Indiana, Oregon, and Ohio State. And I know you can immediately point out to me, John, well, can I trust this list when I just watched Indiana completely put the hammer down on Oregon, like just drain the life out of that offense and beat them in Autzen, and then Oregon still ranked ahead of it? Look, yeah, it's not perfect. They're not rankings. It's a power rating. So it's about like who would be favored on a neutral field. But that makes this even more impressive. Like, this isn't about like so much like merit and ranking and accomplishment. It's like, who do they think has the most talent and is actually the best on a neutral field against somebody in Texas Tech's number 4? Look who they're just in front of. Texas A&M and Oklahoma, and Texas down there at number 10. I mean, that to me is very significant. Okay. So Texas Tech, according to some of the bigger Tech haters, Big 12 haters out there, Texas Tech actually national championship level good, according to Bill Connolly's S&P Plus and Bud Elliott, who's given a bit of a nod to that. So that is, look, I know not everybody is crazy, as Houston fan earlier. Sorry to call you out, my friend. Not everybody is crazy about Texas Tech necessarily, even if you're in the Big 12. But this, I would suggest that this is a good thing if you get committed enough donors to go out and buy you a roster and do it in an intelligent way, which James Blanchard has clearly been a huge part of that and an underrated part of that. The GM at Texas Tech, if you do it the right way, and then you've got a guy in Joey McGuire who can create the right culture, you absolutely can buy your way into national championship contention, it appears, right now. Okay, so who's number two? Who's number two in the Big 12? We've established now that Texas Tech, according to SP Plus, national championship level good. Who's number two in the Big 12? Who is going to be the closest challenger here? I think that is a fascinating discussion. It's completely wide open. I do have an opinion, and my opinion actually here is backed up by Bill Connolly's S&P Plus at ESPN. But I'm curious what others think, because SP Plus would tell you Utah is number 16. It would tell you that Utah is number 2 in the Big 12. Beyond that, BYU is at 23, and we're getting all the way down to 30 for Cincinnati. And as I said, Utah, and as I was going through this and like, okay, who do I think is actually number 2 here in the Big 12 right now? I thought Cincinnati would be the team that would have the biggest beef with me going out and saying that about Utah. But I really do think for Utah, they just had to play Texas Tech first. And that changed the way that we viewed them because Texas Tech ran through them. But Utah could absolutely be the second best team in the league, even by a significant margin, and still be that far behind Texas Tech. I do think that is very much possible based on the talent level on Tech's roster. But here's why Utah's far behind. Utah doesn't have nearly as many ways to beat you as Texas Tech does. If you shut down Utah's rushing offense and you make Devin Dampier have to beat you, we saw what will happen. That's exactly what Texas Tech did. And Devin Dampier doesn't have the arm right now to beat you, and eventually Tech wore them down. But I think other teams in the league could do it, although maybe not a ton of teams, because like Arizona State, I thought had one of the better defenses in the league. And man, Arizona State just got mowed down. 7 drives in the game, 6 of them touchdown drives for Utah. I mean, just crazy, unbelievably efficient. And Arizona State could not stop them at all. Dampier only had to throw the ball 12 times. That's a recipe for a Utah win every single time. So who can do that in the Big 12? Who could shut down the run game and force that? Well, I do think BYU is a candidate because of the defense that the Cougars have, and we're going to find that out on Saturday, which I'm incredibly excited to find out the answer to that. But they will have a chance. They will have a chance to do that. Every team here I'm about to rattle through, like other contenders, everyone has flaws, right? Cincinnati, like I said, probably has the best argument because of the way that they just dog walked Iowa State. I know it wound up being a closer game final score wise than that, but they're up 24 on them. Controversial pass interference call kind of keeps Iowa State in the game. And yeah, Iowa State looks like a shell of itself right now. More on that in a moment. But combine that with the win over Kansas on the road, I think Cincinnati has done some impressive things. They were just okay on Saturday, big first half against UCF, and then just sort of parked the bus and hung on in the second half, but was never really in threat of going away. Cincinnati is legitimately pretty good, but the problem with Cincy is when you're talking about weaknesses and how can you beat them? How many ways do they have to beat you? Cincinnati's got the 15th ranked pass defense in the Big 12 right now. Offense I think is great. Their running game especially has been great, but I just don't know if that defense can hold up enough. Arizona State, I thought, man, they seem to be rounding back into form. Things look great. They've got a quarterback that I just love watching because I think he's like the most determined dude in the league and just plays his ass off. But now Sam Leavitt's hurt. They've got Texas Tech this week. We don't know yet whether or not Sam Leavitt is going to play in that game. And there's all sorts of problems about the defense. Like that game in Salt Lake was about more than just Sam Leavitt's injury. Arizona State's got a lot of issues that now have popped up, and their margin for error will be gone if they lose to Texas Tech this weekend, which, I mean, Seems like that's going to be a very tough putt. BYU, I mean, there's some good things happening there, but it already seems like, you heard Michael's comment to start the show, like BYU's already playing with fire. Got down 14-0 at Colorado. Went think about this, 2.5 quarters without scoring against Arizona, and had to just pull that one out of the fire, even with a critical Bear Bachmeier fumble that they were very lucky to get back on. I'm still in a phase of I don't trust that offense to be good enough to run through and be the second best team in the Big 12 right now. We'll see. Utah's a 2-point favorite early in the Holy War game. I do think that'll be knockdown, drag out. I think that'll be a total battle. But there's BYU. Iowa State and TCU, I'm putting them in the same boat because they just put together horrific efforts, bad games. Maybe horrific is a little strong for Iowa State, but they laid eggs. They certainly laid eggs on Saturday. Just not consistent enough. Very flawed. TCU's offense, honestly, has not fallen off a cliff, but it's been a little more disappointing. Not just the sloppiness, but not as effective from a success rate standpoint lately. There are just a lot of issues. And Iowa State's totally beat up. Iowa State is totally beat up right now. They feel like a shell of themselves. Here's a team that's just lurking. Baylor. What a week for Baylor, right? They hang out. They watch Iowa State and TCU lose. Good for them, not just from a standing standpoint, but TCU being their rival. And now TCU feeling beat up going into that game this weekend, a rivalry game. I mean, Baylor's 2-1. They're still right here. They've got an explosive offense, but my problem with Baylor, the defense. They gave up 27 to Oklahoma State. They gave up 34 to K-State. That's in back-to-back weeks. So I don't know if Baylor's defense would make me confident enough to say, oh, yeah, Baylor, second best team in the Big 12. And Houston, Houston's sitting there with just one loss, and that loss was to Texas Tech. And if you go look at Houston's schedule, I do think it's pretty manageable. But I got to see Houston beat somebody good this year. It's a market improvement from where their program's been to get to 5-1 right now. But I need to see them beat somebody better. We have not seen that yet this year. And I worry about their offense against a great defense. I mean, we saw what happened against Texas Tech. They got beat up. Their quarterback got knocked out of the game. Not everybody's going to be Texas Tech, but Utah is on that schedule, I believe, for Houston. They've got to play BYU. BYU certainly would be capable of beating them up. So every team has flaws here. Every team has flaws that we're talking about for number 2. Texas Tech, I guess it's not like it's totally flawless. Behren Morton's health is certainly an issue. And Will Hammond does not look like it's going to be, just plug and play 100%. Let's go like it was at Utah every single time now. So there are some things that can be attacked for Texas Tech, I suppose. But relative to the rest of the Big 12, they're about as close to flawless as you could get. I mean, they are certainly in a much better spot than anybody else in the league. So there are my thoughts. And Pacific Northwest U, I know you want to weigh in on this. I'm going to get Bob. I'm going to get to Pacific Northwest U first here because, Bob, you're going to lead me into the next segment on the show. Okay. So thank you, everybody. Please, if you want to submit a super chat, click the $ below the chat box to do that. Thank you, everybody who does. It is much appreciated. Like the video. That's totally free. It helps. Subscribe to the channel. That's totally free. It really helps. Subscribers have been going way up lately. So thank you to everybody. If you're new to the channel, I really appreciate it. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com as well. 5,000 plus Big 12 fans already have. It's totally free. It comes to your inbox twice a week. Pacific Northwest Ute says we'll learn more about number 2 on Saturday. And November 1st, Bearcats down. Okay, so I assume is that Utah, Cincinnati? Let's see. We are definitely going to learn more about number 2 on Saturday, not just for the Holy War, but for the entire schedule that's going on. And then the Cincinnati-Utah game is on November 1st. You are correct. And that is going to be played in Salt Lake. That's at Rice-Eccles. So tough one for Cincinnati there. But guys, to Pacific Northwest Utes' point, have you looked at the Big 12 schedule this week? Big 12 schedule this week is very, very enticing, okay? Arizona-Houston. I mean, it starts early. Arizona-Houston, really good game. Baylor-TCU coming out of the chute at 11 a.m. also. Then you've got Texas Tech at Arizona State, that your big 3:00 on Fox game, which is going to lead into Utah, BYU. Cincinnati's got to go to Oklahoma State, and then West Virginia, TCU. But there are 4 really important games involving all those teams I just talked about, right? 8 of those teams. We'll learn a lot more on Saturday for sure as this continues to evolve. Pacific Northwest U, thank you, my friend. All right, so Bob wants to talk about this Lance Leipold, Joey McGuire situation, which I am definitely going to get into here. So Bob says Leipold deflected blame for KU's loss with a weak Big 12 rule. Tech hit for single tortillas, kills tradition and hurts what makes the Big 12 unique. Well, a couple thoughts. I've got a lot of thoughts on this whole situation. I'll set it up for you. I will play you the video of the altercation argument, whatever you want to call it, kind of a profanity-laced tirade there from Lance Leipold with talking with Joey McGuire at midfield after the game. As far as the tortilla thing goes, I mean, I think the way it works, like it's supposed to be the 3rd time it happens, there's a penalty doled out, right? As long as if Tech fans can do it at the beginning of the game, keep the tradition going at the beginning of the game, it's just a warning. I think that's great. I'm good with it. Like, let's do that. Keep the tradition. I'm with you, Bob. I love the tradition of that. And I will also point out, Tech fans, I was thinking of this yesterday. This is a tradition that has, it's not just Texas Tech that has done this, I guess is my point. I can remember as a kid, one of my great memories, the 1998 Kansas State Wildcats, who were number 1 in the country for a handful of weeks and just missed out on the national championship game. I'm not going to talk about the rest of that story, but the national championship game that year was the Fiesta Bowl. And throughout the season, K-State fans would throw tortillas on the field or toward the sideline after big plays because the thought was, hey, we're going to the Fiesta Bowl. We're going to play for the national championship. So there are other places that have done it too. This is not like just a Tech thing. If you go watch Michael Bishop highlight reels on YouTube. There's a touchdown in particular he scores, the first touchdown of the K-State Nebraska game in 1998. He runs into the end zone, and then you see tortillas come and hit the edge of the playing surface there. So others have done this too. It is not just a Tech thing. I've got nuanced thoughts on this, Bob. So let me set it all up, and I will get to it for you here, okay? So the real fireworks between Kansas and Texas Tech, of course, came off the field. We got profanity-laced tirade from Lance Leipold, and it was directed at Joey McGuire. Now, Lance Leipold also went off and said a lot of things in the post-game press conference, but we've seen coaches do that before. You do not often see a coach go after another head coach in the post-game press conference. So who's in the right here, or go after a coach at midfield? Who is in the right here? Lance Leipold, Joey McGuire, Texas Tech. What? I think it's very nuanced. I think there's a lot of nuance here, okay? I will probably make both Kansas and Tech fans mad in the same segment here. So what you have is this new rule in the conference this year about throwing things onto the field. It's supposed to be the 3rd time it happens. You get assessed a 15-yard penalty. Texas Tech had to take 30 yards in penalties during the game for tortillas being thrown on the field. Theoretically, it could work out where you throw tortillas on the field at the beginning of the game and the end of the game and call it good. No one's going to have to worry about penalties. Everything's okay, right? That's a world that can exist even within the context of the rule. Tech has been very, Kirby Hocutt's initial reaction to the rule when it was doled out this summer was like, hey, we're not killing this tradition. Tech has been kind of defiant about this. I guess I would say that. So game happens. Kansas loses 42-17. Lance Leipold is very upset, not just about tortillas. We have a Swiss Army pocket knife that has entered the chat. And that is one of the things that's really at the crux of all of this. So one of the penalties, according to Lance Leipold, was not about just a tortilla. It was about said Swiss Army pocket knife thrown from the stands. Lance Leipold said that in his postgame press conference. A KU spokesperson also said through the Kansas City Star that, quote, a Swiss Army pocket knife hit a Kansas staff member in the 3rd quarter, which is why Tech was penalized the 2nd time. So that's why Lance Leipold was really, really hot here. Okay. Now let me play you this. The audio sometimes on these can be a bit faint, but what I hope you'll be able to just hear is the beeps. What you need to hear are the beeps that come here with the post-game interaction between Lance Leipold and Joey McGuire. Shout out to David Collier, who does excellent work in Lubbock, who got the footage of these two guys having a meeting after the game. Let's go ahead and roll the footage. So with that context, pocket knife, all that, here's what happens between Joey McGuire and Lance Leipold at midfield.
Coach, I can't do anything about it. You want me to do something about it? I just heard. I know. And I said I got it.
Coach, you and Coach Leipold.
Okay. So not sure how much of that you were able to decipher there, but what happens is Lance Leipold says, like, hey, you can hear him say, hey, something got like thrown at our bench or whatever. And Joey says, yeah, I know. And then Lance says, that's BS. Like, that's BS. And he keeps saying that until finally Joey kind of loses it. And he's like, hey, man, what do you want me to do about it, coach? What do you want me to do about it? And then they're just kind of huffing and puffing and yelling as they start to go their separate ways. So that's what happens there at the end of the game. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this in all different directions, because I don't think this is a cut and dried, wow, this is so soft and Lance is an idiot. And I don't think it's that. And I don't think it's, man, Texas Tech, this is so trashy, the fans are horrible, and Lance should absolutely do all of this. Guys, the answer is somewhere in between, okay? I hate to break it to you all, but the answer is somewhere in between. As I said, I do love the tradition, okay? I love the tradition. This is what makes college sports great. We cannot get so tied up in not liking a school or the fans that you see of somebody on Twitter or whatever to like want to take away traditions like this or be against good college football traditions like this. That's why we love the sport, because there are unique things like this that exist. Okay. So first and foremost, I'm pro Texas Tech with the tortillas. I also think it can live within the rules, as has already been discussed. Just don't do it the entire game. Do it at the beginning and end. Everything will be fine. Okay. That's part one. Part two, and I said this last night, my initial reaction before I had a chance to really see everything was, hey, if my coach just got beat 42-17 and then is going to the post-game press conference and complaining a lot about this and saying the rule wasn't enforced well and that there should have been even more than the 30 yards in penalties that were enforced, how would I feel about that? I'd probably be like, hey, coach, how about you guys just play better? Like, I would rather you be concerned about what led to a 42-17 loss and why we couldn't push through when it was 21-17, why we couldn't adjust, why our run defense is getting gashed every single week, and we're like a bottom 5 run defense in the country. Yeah, I would have other concerns, and I'd be a little like, dude, just worry about the right things. But if I were Lance Leipold, and if an object beyond just a tortilla was actually thrown at a staff member on the sideline, would I be hot about that, especially like in the heat of the moment in the game? Yeah, for sure. And so like I can even cut him a little bit of slack for the, meeting at the 50-yard line. There's nothing Joey McGuire. I don't think like taking your anger out on Joey McGuire is the right thing there. But I can understand heat of the moment, cut you some slack, how you get a bit upset about that. Now, having said all that, do I understand why Texas Tech fans are extra sensitive about this? Yes, I do understand why Texas Tech fans are extra sensitive about this, because there have been numerous accusations of things like this before, and there's never been any real like proof that has surfaced, like a picture of something. I know Tech fans always joke about the batteries accusations that have been out there. Like that has come up a lot, and people use it as a way to label the entire fan base, right? So I get why there's a lot of sensitivity there, and I understand completely why this was like a supercharged topic. And I don't think Texas Tech is a bad fan base and a bunch of, any of the stuff that you'll hear like a Texas fan or somebody say about the Tech fans. No, I don't think that's fair at all. I don't think that's true at all. I have been personally on the sideline multiple times at Jones AT&T Stadium. When I was covering K-State for a decade, I went to Lubbock 5 times, and at least 3 of those times I was still doing video. So I was on the sideline for the entire game. And I never was in fear of anything. Never. These things always get like overblown and overhyped. I remember the 2012 K-State West Virginia game. there was a lot of back and forth on Twitter, and good old K-State mask guy made that video making fun of West Virginia fans before the game. And there was all this talk, like back on message boards then too, about how, West Virginia fans were going to be so drunk and they were going to throw stuff and like trying to get everybody all worked up. And I was on the sideline shooting video that day. And I was, I'm just kind of like, man, like, I don't know. I'm a little worried about what's going to happen here if I'm on the K-State sideline. And it was totally fine. Like, it was totally fine. Nothing happened. And that was with K-State just gobsmacking West Virginia. It was a bad day for the locals and nobody threw anything. Nobody did anything. So yeah, sometimes I think these things just get like overhyped. And at the same time, I can cut Leipold some slack for like heat of the moment, middle of the game. If he hears about that happening and your team's losing, and like, yeah, a lot of people would react that way, just needing some way to take out your frustration on something. Okay. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at. The proof thing, I also would just say, like, I don't know how many cell phones are like on the sideline. I would do coaches. This actually got me thinking. I was like, do coaches, do they have their cell phones with them on the sideline? I assume, like players, nobody does. So I don't, because I see all the tech, we'll take a picture of it for proof. I get why you say that again, because I get where tech fans are coming from that. I'm like, people always say this stuff and there's never visual proof. I'm also like, I don't know, depending on who it was and where it's at, I could see how it's, I don't know, you just kick it aside or something and no one takes a picture. I don't know, guys. This is all much ado about nothing, really, in the end. I think the point here is Tech fans need to chill out on the tortilla part just so that they don't hurt their team. And that was what Joey McGuire was saying after the game, kind of pleading with them at the post-game press conference. That would be really my biggest message. Like, I just opened the show saying, hey, the numbers show that Tech can win a national championship here. Let's not screw that up by just because you want to stick it to the man and throw tortillas on the field. Like, do it at the beginning of the game, do it at the end of the game, chill out in between. Let's not have that like ruin a good thing here. And Lance Leipold's a fiery guy. He's a demanding guy. It was in the heat of the moment and what I'm sure was a frustrating night for him. I don't think it's a total indictment on his character. I also don't think it's a total indictment on the character of Texas Tech fans. Okay. So have I made everybody angry? Have I made everybody angry, Tech fans and Kansas fans, with that take? Hopefully not. Let's see what else we got here. I see Bob says, rule to stop tortilla rain, not random, harmless seagulls. He pointed one out for a flag, cheaply trying to get as an advantage. Lance Leipold and the league is soft. Well, if you want to say the league is soft, be my guest. If you want to say, hey, that rule is soft, be my guest. I think this is a tough situation because, like, yeah, you don't want objects being thrown in general at different stadiums. And there have been other student sections before, Colorado, back in the Big 12 days that, students got kicked out and there were lots of issues with people throwing things onto the field. So, like, you do have to have some sort of rule about it. I understand, hey, if we could all just let cooler heads prevail and like work to be a little more lenient with Tech because of the tradition, I'm all for that. But if it's a coach who's doing it to gain an advantage, like, I don't know, Bob, don't you want your coach doing everything he can to get you an extra edge and a win? And if he knows that that's a 15-yard penalty, like, I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of other little things like that could happen throughout the course of a game where I would want my coach trying to do that, like gain every single possible advantage. So I'm not going to call that soft. If you want to call the conference rule soft, okay, I have more understanding for that. I would disagree a little bit on Leipold just trying to get the penalty there. Okay. I want, like, he's up against it, man. That's almost like a sign of respect. He knows he needs every little bit that he can get because he's going to play Texas Tech, the 4th ranked team in S&P Plus in the country, right? He knows he needs that. Anyway, I get it. Everyone's fired up about this. Alan says, thank you for being here. Alan says, love the game until the third quarter. Then Texas Tech showed what a national championship contender looks like. Kudos to the Red Raiders, Rock Chalk Jayhawk Alan. Look at that. Thank you, Alan. Very classy. Appreciated your tweet during the game too, Alan. When you sent that was about the time that I sent my tweet that was like, oh, Tech looks like they're in some legit trouble here. And then it was all downhill from there. for your Jayhawks, unfortunately, Alan. But thank you for being here. Thank you for the classy words. Please be kind to my cats on October 25th, Alan, after both of us have the bye week coming up here. Okay. Scott, one last point I'll make, because Scott brings up a good point. Scott says, what keeps opposing fans from throwing tortillas? That is a funny part of this, because I did say to somebody, I was on our 3-Mod postgame show where I was like, hey, Cole, my co-host Cole, I said, Cole, can you just dress up in a Kansas t-shirt and show up in Lawrence in 2 weeks and wait for like a critical third down and then just hurl a package of tortillas onto the K-State sideline so that we can just get a 15-yard penalty, move that thing forward? Yes, you do open yourself up a little bit there. Okay. Like there are, but guys, I guess the point that I would make is just like this is not like a black and white, like, hey, there's one perfect solution here. Because you can't have people just throwing stuff from the stands. You need some legit penalty there that can curb fans doing it. And if it's going to hurt their team, that's a way to make it happen, right? And this isn't a rule that came because people were trying to single out Tech. It's because we've had this happening in college football the last few years. Blame Texas. Tech fans blame Texas. That was the biggest example of this that we saw recently, was Texas fans like bullying the officials in the Georgia game last year. Like it's been a thing. It's something that I think people realized, hey, we need to address it. It's not perfect. Okay. But let's all find a way to work together on this instead of just calling everybody soft. Like, I don't think that's the ultimate answer here. Okay. Boy, we've gone 41 minutes into this thing and have not talked in depth about the James Franklin situation at Penn State and all the ripple effects through the Big 12 on that. Private capital, Big 12 coaches being poached. There are a lot of tentacles to this, even if you're not a Big 10 fan or a Penn State fan. Okay, so let's make sure and cover that next. But please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody who does that. Totally free way to support. If you want to donate, you can click the $ below the chat box, and your question or comment will make it onto the show. So I appreciate everybody who does that. Also, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo, if you would like to submit a question or comment there. If you're not watching live, I will get it, and I will kick off the next show with it. And hey, you can subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. That is ofbnews.com in order to do that. 5,000 plus Big 12 fans do subscribe. It's totally free. It comes to your inbox twice a week. All right. The Big Ten is closing in on a private capital deal. That came out on Friday. It's going to infuse $2 billion into the conference. And today showed us exactly why that matters, with the craziness of the coaching carousel and James Franklin being fired. And all of this could lead to a Big 12 coach, or maybe coaches, getting poached. Okay, so let's connect the dots. On a wild day of college football news, we saw 3 coaches fired today, 2 much less consequential than James Franklin, but it's a growing list of jobs that are now open in college football, and the Big 12 has not been immune from that with Mike Gundy. Trent Dilfer at UAB, I mean, that was a long time coming. That had been kind of a disaster. Trent Bray at Oregon State, who was 0-7. A couple Big 12 teams contributed to that. Houston's miraculous comeback win and Texas Tech blowing them out. And then, of course, James Franklin. So James Franklin, he's going to be owed $49 million. Yeah, $49 million is what it's going to cost Penn State to fire James Franklin. He, of course, lost to Northwestern, which is a horrific loss, backed up against the UCLA loss when UCLA had not led anybody the entire season, which, of course, was preceded by the home loss to Oregon, which is where all of this started tumbling down for James Franklin and company. James Franklin won 13 games last year. He went to the college football playoff semifinal. He's now fired and is going to be owed $49 million. Welcome to big-time college football. And Penn State certainly asserts itself as a big-time college football program. I do think it is very important to emphasize here that all this comes on the heels of the story that broke Friday about the Big Ten closing in on this $2 billion private capital deal, which, crazy enough, I mean, all this just seems so like, how are we here in college sports? Why is this a thing? But it's the University of California System Pension Fund is what is investing the money here. So it's not even like a a private equity firm. It's the pension fund of the University of like California system. So much with that, I mean, Cal, people saying like, oh, was Cal going to like buy their way back in? Like, it's just ridiculous that this is where we're at, so that coaches can afford schools can afford $49 million buyouts. They need $2 billion in private capital because of that. But this is the world that we live in right now. That's a whole other tangent. And I will give a shout out to Stuart Mandel. I thought he wrote a good column about this. Hard to listen to colleges complain about like, oh, woe is us. We need money. We now have to revenue share with the players when Jimbo Fisher's being paid $80 million to go away. Now you've got James Franklin being paid $49 million to go away. Stuart Mandel did the math on all the coaching buyouts that are likely to happen this year, and it would be over $200 million that's likely to be doled out in buyouts this year to college football coaches. Yeah, it's a little hard to be like, oh, yeah, boy, poor universities here when everybody's paying that much to just fire people, paying them to not work for them. That's kind of like a smallest violin thing. Like, you guys just are not managing money well. You're getting your just raked over the coals by like the Jimmy Sextons, the super agents of the world, who take advantage of high leverage situations when an athletic director in the span of like 48 hours has to come up with a new deal because the coach is about to get poached. And it was a great job that Mandel did of outlining that's what happened with James Franklin. USC, when they wound up hiring Lincoln Riley, that was the rumor that James Franklin was going to go there. And all of a sudden they had to do something to wrap it up, and they give Franklin this big guaranteed contract. But the fallout of this is, and the real example that I would make of this is like, this is the type of thing that like a Big Ten or an SEC school can do because of this extra money that a Big 12 school is not going to be able to do. Okay. I'm sure Penn State is doing this right now in the back of their mind with the thought, hey, we're going to get a ton of money because it's a 9-figure payday, right? So we're talking $100 million plus for every single Big Ten team, rather, with this $2 billion private capital deal. They know that $100 million is coming. And so whether or not it's donors that would handle this, I'm sure this would be a structured buyout. Some of it, I think, can be offset if he takes a new job. So there are ways that this could get whittled down and spaced out a little bit. And so maybe it's donors that take care of it. But then, hey, we've got this big private capital infusion, so we won't have to tap those donors as much if they're going to take care of this problem for us. Either way, whether it's directly the private capital money you'd be counting on for this, or it's, hey, we won't have as much donor fatigue because we can use that money that's coming in from the pensions of California employees. Again, so ridiculous to say. One way or the other, you get things taken care of here. Big 12 schools don't have that luxury right now unless you do wind up going down the private capital road. And I guess keep your eye on that because it's already been reported that the Big 12 has gone down that road. They just didn't get across the finish line. So we'll see. Now, will there be extra pressure because the Big 10 is doing it? But for instance, Penn State, just a year after winning 13 games and going to the semifinals of the playoff, they go 3-3, they lose 3 straight games and say, sayonara, here's $49 million. K-State fans have been frustrated with Chris Kleiman this year, and you got a portion of the fan base, of course, that's like, hey, I'm done with this. Let's move on. Well, Chris Kleiman's got a buyout of north of $20 million. I mean, good luck. Like that, there's not a $200 million private capital. The pensions of the University of Kansas employees are not coming in to save the day at K-State with that. So you're in a totally different situation. And I've said before, the difference or the way that this type of money can make a huge difference, whether it's the TV money gap that currently exists between the Big Ten and SEC and everybody else, or we're talking about now the extra layer on top of it that comes from Big Ten enterprises. One of the biggest ways that makes a difference is because you can do more with your staff, not just like your head coach moves, which this is now a part of it, paying buyouts, but also hiring bigger defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators, your staff, your support staff, more people, better video people, better in-game experience stuff. Like that money can win you a lot in the margins, not just like the obvious things that we think of, which would be paying players, but it can go a long way toward being able to pay buyouts of coaches, getting better defensive coordinators. Like look at Penn State. Penn State wound up getting Jim Knowles as their defensive coordinator this year. It didn't work, but he's making like $3 million. He's the highest paid assistant, I believe, in college football. So that is the way that you can really win with this excess money around. Whereas, Big 12 schools, you got to be a lot tighter with the purse strings on everything there. So this is another one of those ways. I just wanted to point out and emphasize that if you see this and you say, man, that seems crazy, it's ridiculous that amount of money can be thrown out there to get rid of a guy, just know that, one, yes, it is crazy. And the whole economic system here is very messed up. And this is a whole, everybody is headed toward a really rough landing with this at some point. And maybe there will be some reform on coaches' contracts because of this type of thing. I don't know. I would suggest probably not, because private capital is just going to make people more willing to do this because they have extra money floating around. But also, hey, if you're a Big 12 school, you got to look around and just be like, dude, we got to stick it out. Now, maybe this could be a better thing in some ways for Big 12 schools, actually, okay? Spin zone here, people. Spin zone. In all seriousness, like, Penn State may wind up Nebraska-ing themselves with this because, like I said, James Franklin has won double-digit games each of the last 3 years. James Franklin's been a damn good coach. He's just not an elite coach. And so Penn State's like tired of being very good. Penn State wants to be elite. They're going to take their swing. But, man, there is absolutely a chance that you pay a ton of money to go get a guy who's just going to be as good or worse than what James Franklin was. And does that send you down a long road to becoming Nebraska, right? Nebraska at one point was winning 9 or 10 games every year with Frank Solich, but that wasn't good enough. And then they snapped their fingers 10 to 15 years later. Nebraska they have the longest bowl-less streak in Power 4 football. So, that could happen. And sometimes having some more patience does work out. One of the examples I always point to with that in past Big 12 days was like Gary Pinkel, at Mizzou, got off to a pretty slow start. And there were a lot of Mizzou fans that wanted him gone. They had a lot of patience with him. And then all of a sudden they're up and running and they're a top 5 team. And Pinkel did some great, great things at Mizzou. So this could actually backfire and just be totally reckless spending, much to Stuart Mandel's point. But it is a difference in the flexibility that you have if you are a school in the Big 10 versus a school in the Big 12 because of the money that is there. Now, the other part of this, the other part of the Penn State job opening with James Franklin being fired is that, yes, of course, Big 12 coaches have been mentioned and linked to the job. And also, this is just one in a long line of jobs that have either already come open or are going to come open before the end of the year. Because you listen to anybody out there who's plugged in college football, they will tell you like this, we are not even close to being done. And if you're just watching the results of games on Saturday, you know that we're not even close to being done. Lots of other jobs are about to open. So the point is, you're a Big 12 fan and you like your coach, you want to hang on to your coach, buckle up. Hands and feet inside the ride, and please hold on. Because you're going to deal with a lot of rumors. Let's start with Penn State. I mentioned a moment ago, they run the risk of Nebraska-ing themselves. And to me, this is just so poetic all the way around. I think the guy that's being mentioned by most as the favorite right now literally coaches at Nebraska and would be the guy that would start the descent into Nebraska-ing Penn State. That's Matt Rule. Okay, Matt Rule played at Penn State. He coached once upon a time at Temple. He is really good friends with the AD at Penn State. Like, I understand the connections there, and Nebraska's having a nice year. They're 5-1. He's done, I think, a solid job with the Nebraska program. They are getting better. I don't think Matt Rule is a definitively better coach than James Franklin. You're going to pay $49 million to just like swap out for like a different like model of James Franklin. I guess you just go from a Honda Accord to a Toyota Camry. That's what it feels like you'd be doing there. Just a different shade of the same thing. The other guy is Kurtz. And look, if I were Penn State, I would pursue that with everything I have. I don't know if he will go, but I would pursue Kurtz at Indiana with everything I have. Indiana looks like they might be the best team in the country right now. Matt Rule just doesn't do it for me. And that seems like, I don't know, man. Why would Penn State be making this move right now just to do that? But of course, Big 12 coaches have been named. All right. The first one, you guys know one of them that's coming up. Okay. I don't even have to tell you about one of them. Let me get to the other one first. Dan Lanning, or excuse me, not Dan Lanning, Kenny Dillingham. Kenny Dillingham is one that has been mentioned. I saw 24/7 Sports brought up Kenny Dillingham. There were a couple other, just in perusing the internet a little bit, a couple of other Penn State hot boards that seem to have some interest in Kenny Dillingham. I know it's not, he's not at his hottest right now after losing that game 42-10 to Utah. But it's obvious, young and upcoming coach, was like Dan Lanning, coaching tree guy, and Dan Lanning has worked out swimmingly at Oregon, although again, not the greatest of weeks for him. But you get the idea there, right? Young, up and coming coach. And then the other one, you guys know who it is. You guys know who it is. It's the so-and-so head coach Matt Campbell meme is there for a reason. And it's not just me or the Gambling Gauchos like wanting to needle every single time. It's because it literally is, it's just become true. Like any job that comes open, Matt Campbell gets mentioned, but especially something in Big Ten country because of Matt Campbell's roots. Matt Campbell has been mentioned a lot. So on 3, CBS Sports and The Athletic, on their main hot boards for the Penn State job, they all have Matt Campbell listed. He's generally about the 3rd or 4th coach on there. Many of these, I see him pop up right after Matt Rule and Kurtz. Here is what this was on 3. Here's what on 3 had to say. A head coach who has not had the most resources to work with has continued to win at Iowa State. Campbell 69-53, has only 2 losing seasons. He's taken Iowa State to the Big 12 title game twice, 7 bowl trips. He has ties to the Midwest. He's an Ohio native. Campbell's name has come up for plenty of jobs over the years, but he's opted to stay. Is this the job that can pull him away? He played at Pitt for a season before finishing out his college career at Mount Union. The next one is CBS Sports says it would not be a coaching carousel cycle without Matt Campbell hearing his name floated as a candidate for a big-time job. He's a mainstay on hot boards, particularly in the Big Ten, but is yet to leave Iowa State amid a terrific decade-long run. He's responsible for essentially all of the best seasons in Cyclone history, fresh off his 2nd trip to the Big 12 title game. He redefined the ceiling of Iowa State football and could do the same at Penn State if given the opportunity. So, do I think this is the job that would... I don't think this is something that would work out. Maybe this is one that Matt Campbell would listen to, but he's stuck around for so long, so much of this speculation. We got the Brock Purdy story recently that USC was apparently one school that was legitimately pretty interested, and Matt Campbell wound up thinking about it and deciding to bow out of that race. Is Penn State something that would have more pull there? Supposedly, according to Brock Purdy, it was like a cultural thing that he was really tugging at when he tried to convince Matt Campbell not to go to USC. Penn State's probably a better fit culturally. So, I don't know, maybe. I don't think the odds are high that it would get to Matt Campbell. He would want to go and that it would actually get to him, right? Because Kurtz and Matt Rule, those seem like 2 coaches that would at least have a decent amount of interest, right? I think there's a good chance you could get one of those 2 guys. Though there's a legit discussion, and I saw this, Tom Fornelli of CBS Sports was having this discussion today. Is Indiana actually a better job right now? If you have fairly equal money, you're seeing right now that Indiana, I mean, they might be like a top 2 or 3 seed in the playoff this year. So why would you need to go start over then at Penn State and have all the extra pressure there where at Indiana? So there is a legit conversation about that. And Nebraska, we'll see how the season finishes with Matt Rule, but is Penn State that much more resourced than what Nebraska is? There's obviously more of like a pulling at the heartstrings thing there. There's a chance it could get to Matt Campbell, but I would say if Matt Rule really is going to be in the top 2 there, I would have a hard time seeing it get beyond Rule for that job at Penn State. So Iowa State fans, I would not worry too much here. Arizona State, I don't know, the Kenny Dillingham thing seems like a weird fit. Seems like a weird fit to me. Kenny's obviously an Arizona State guy. Penn State, you're going to have more resources. I mean, it's a different convo when you're talking about resources at Penn State versus what's in the Big 12 here. Again, Indiana, say what you will about the program. They are going to get a 9-figure payday from the California Pension Fund. So that'll help when you're talking about resources there. So probably something you have to listen to, but I'd be very surprised if either of those guys wound up going. But the problem here is the rest of the coaching carousel. The rest of the coaching carousel. This stuff is going to continue to come up, I think, with Big 12 coaches. Because this is the list of jobs that are already open right now. You've got Penn State, Arkansas, UCLA, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State. That's already a pretty substantial list. And we're like at the halfway mark of the season, guys. Like we're approaching midway through October, and that's already the list of jobs that are open. Florida lost again. Like Billy Napier is going to be done. Auburn lost again. Hugh Freeze is probably going to be done. North Carolina, like the Bill Belichick stuff has already come out. Can anybody see Belichick lasting into next year? That's probably going to be open. Wisconsin is one of the worst Power 4 teams out there. Another coach, Luke Fickell, that has a huge buyout, but Wisconsin may well just say, hey, we can't do this. Oklahoma, and Brent Venables continues to not be able to beat Texas. Kentucky, the Mark Stoops situation, like Michigan State has been playing horrible football the last few weeks. They had a bad loss on Saturday. South Carolina, like, will there be heat on, why am I blanking on Shane Beamer? Shane Beamer out there at South Carolina. Like, these are all jobs that could be coming open this cycle. And it might make for just a completely nuts coaching carousel with a bunch of movement, other jobs opening because someone's leaving from somewhere. I think you guys get the point, right? Like, Big 12 coaches are always on those hot lists because of the resource difference between some of these Power 2 jobs that open up. So far, the Big 12 has been pretty, I don't even know if I would say fortunate, but it just has not worked out very well for teams trying to come after Big 12 coaches. There have not been a lot of matches there. They're going to keep trying. And there is now a private capital money infusion in the Big 10, which is further increasing the resource gap up there. So we'll see. We'll see. Stay tuned. I'm still optimistic that the Big 12 is not going to lose a heavy hitter, but I think you're going to have to endure a lot of rumors if you're a fan of one of these Big 12 coaches that becomes pretty popular in coaching search season. So be careful. Be careful out there. Be careful out there. All right, let's get to a couple super chats before we wrap things up here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate everybody who's here. I just saw, what was the message I just saw? From a very nice gentleman. Clint said, a recent subscriber, first live show. Good stuff. Thank you, Clint. Thank you for subscribing. Be like Clint, everybody. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of the video to do that. Join nearly 5,300 Big 12 fans who already do. It's totally free. So thank you, Clint. David, who is a Nebraska fan, says, I agree with your Matt Rule statement. Go after Eli Drinkwitz, Kurt Signetti, Lincoln Riley. Yeah, Eli Drinkwitz is a guy that I think may wind up moving this cycle. His name's coming up a lot. If I am Penn State, is the Big 12 worried about losing head coach or coordinators? Well, I mean, it certainly could be coordinators too, getting poached for bigger jobs. So David, that's actually a really good point, because I just said what helps with having all this extra money, if you're these bigger schools, is being able to go like money whip coordinators into coming. And we've seen, Houston lost Sheil Wood to Texas Tech. K-State lost Colin Klein to Texas A&M. They're now having a very good year with a good offense. We'll see what happens to Andy Kotelnicki now, who was James Franklin's offensive coordinator, but he got taken away from Kansas. So there's definitely concern there. I think that's a really good point. And then David also adds Wisconsin, Florida State, Florida. Yeah, Florida State, man. Another guy with a big buyout, but Mike Norvell's now 3-3. Florida State could. James Franklin in North Carolina. That's an interesting fit. Well, hey, I think it was Eddie Radosevich, who's one of the funniest college football content creators out there. Great follow. I would highly suggest that. He's an Oklahoma guy, but I thought he said, like, hey, I would see if I'm Oklahoma State, I would see if James Franklin wants to have some, was it like cheesy fries or something at Eskimo Joe's? Wouldn't you make the call? Maybe see about that. I mean, I still think James Franklin is a good coach. He's not one of the like top 5 best coaches in the country, but James Franklin's, he's like a well-established, like top 15 college football coach. I would make the call at least. I definitely would. And yeah, good point on Florida State, David. That is definitely another one that, we'll see. They were going to pay 9 figures to get out of their conference. So I feel like they could probably scrounge up the money to get rid of Norvell if they really get fed up enough. Thomas, what's up, Thomas? All right, Thomas is going to close us down here. Thomas says, just pop it in to say Lance Leipold is the softest coach in football. Keep up the great work, John. And y'all sign up for Open for Business. Hey, well, thank you, Thomas, for the encouragement there. You guys see the sign, Open for Business, now the show, but also the newsletter, ofbnews.com to get signed up. Thank you, Thomas, for that. Appreciate it. I assume you're a Tech fan, so congrats to your Red Raiders this weekend. And thank you, everybody, for hanging out tonight, man. Fun show. Be back at it next week. I am headed to the Holy War this weekend, so flying out on Saturday. Really looking forward to that. And I've got a Chiefs game to watch, ladies and gentlemen. I got to go watch my Kansas City Chiefs, who had to put in a little emergency plan at left tackle. If the Chiefs could go 1 week without like some weird family emergency or medical thing happening last minute on the injury report, that would be fantastic and make my life a little less stressful. Anyway, I digress. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your evening and have a great start to your week. I will talk to you guys soon.